Hello everyone, welcome back to Tammy's Bookshelf, and today we're going to do my end of April wrap up. So in the month of April, I think I read 23 books, quote unquote. Some of them were very short, some of them were short stories, and I did finish my magical readathon TBR, although to be honest, that put a lot of stress on me and I don't think I'm going to participate going forward. Not because I don't love the readathon, but because the stress was not good for me mentally. So I'm going to, and physically I should say as well. So I'm going to, I think, skip out in the future just because I don't think I can handle so many prompts on top of my normal life. 12 was great, 14 was not. For some reason, the 2 extra ones were just too difficult. And going forward with the extra, you have 3 books in a certain order. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. I'll try to do August, but I don't think I'm going to do it in the future months, or not future months, but future years. So yeah, just a little side note. But I did read all the books and all the prompts, and that's partially why I read some short stories. So we're gonna get into what I have read now. The other books were in my first wrap up. I think I had 8 books in that one. And then a lot of these ones are pretty short. So that's why, even though I think there's like 15 here, they're short. So let's get into it. So I read 3 little books from Hans Christian Andersen. I read The Little Mermaid, which was my buzzword book, and I gave it a 3-star. It's not that I didn't know the ending. I just felt like it was good, but not great. And I have read some other dark fairy tales, so it's not like I wasn't expecting a dark fairy tale. And then I also read The Ugly Duckling for the Game of a Bookish Life readathon of an animal companion prompt. And I did vlog the whole thing, so I will link that in case you want to check out all the books I've read there. Like 8 of them are in this video. And I also read The Shadow, which is by Hans Christian Andersen as well. The Ugly Duckling got 4 stars from here, and The Shadow also got 4 stars. So obviously I think everyone knows the Ugly Duckling story, but The Shadow was about a man who grew a shadow and then the shadow left him. And it's a very short story. I don't want to spoil too much, but I think it's worth a read if you at all are interested, or if you are interested at all. It's quite a good one, and I enjoyed The Shadow a lot. So I have now in the front here, I'm going to just do this whenever a little readathon needs some help. I'm going to check off when I have read a certain story, and then I will be able to know when I have read certain ones, and I will be able to work my way through this whole collection. So I have read 3 books from here, so that's 3 of the 15. Another book that I read but I can't find my copy of, and that's frustrating because it's part of a box set, is Anne of Windy Poplars. And this one was frustrating for another reason. I gave it 2 stars. This one is book 4 in the series, but overall it was written last, I believe, and it doesn't fit the rest of the series in my opinion. It just was so out of character, and Anne herself was just not Anne that we know and love. It takes place where Anne is at Windy Poplars instead of Green Gables or anywhere on her little town, and she's writing letters, and then she's also participating in life there. But because the series is such a character-driven series, and I don't mind that in the least with this book series because I love Anne and I love her relationships and her friendships, but because we don't have her with other people that we know and love, it felt really flat. And I felt like I was forced into reading with these characters who I don't enjoy, and I was being forced into liking them, which I didn't like them. So yeah, it just felt like a filler book trying to be like, oh, let's fill in this gap of where Anne is not at her Anne House of Dreams book yet. So I had to give it a 2. It was just so boring, and I was like, I just need to get this book over with. I understand why it takes place in the series, but I think it just was better off not being written. And I think if you are reading the series, you can probably just skip that if you want to and not feel bothered at all. Because Anne's House of Dreams, if I remember right, was fantastic and wonderful, and Anne of Windy Poplars was not. I can't even remember most of the characters' names. I remember there's a woman named Catherine, but that's about it. And basically Anne just writes some letters home, and then she's playing matchmaker a lot in the book, and I did not think that was very Anne-like. So yeah, 2 stars for that one, and I was disappointed. I also finished Gone with the Wind. I did it in 1 full month, and I am so happy with myself. I basically binged a good 2/3 of it in 1 week. I was like, this is my only book I'm reading and I'm gonna finish it, and I did. So this one was very difficult. And I do want to say this before I like review it. I basically walked in knowing nothing. I knew very few things, and I did a vlog where I said what I knew at the beginning. One, I knew it was about the Civil War from the side of the South, and two, I knew that the characters were unlikable. That was all I knew. And I purposely had avoided spoilers about this book because I had watched the movie years ago, forgotten everything except for the fact I hated the characters, and I did not want this. And I think there is a reason to not be spoiled by classics. You don't want to be spoiled for those moments. So I read this and I did a full vlog on my feelings, on my immediate reactions to things. And this one, I'm giving 3 stars. It had some really lovely gems. I loved Rhett and Scarlett's relationship. I loved Melanie as a person and as her relationship with Scarlett was. I loved so many things about this book, but I also hated so many things about this book. It's getting a 3-star because I just can't do any better. I did really love so much of the culture that I got to see in terms of how culture has changed over the decades and 100 years even. I think that that's something about this book where we really get involved with this. When the infamous scene, and I'm not going to say too much about it, but Scarlett's about to do something scandalous, essentially. And my cousin Megan and I were reading this together, listening to it. And she's like, oh, that's going to happen next. And I'm like, there's no way that could happen, because if she did, that would be over the top, the worst thing in the world. The fact that I was able to understand so much of that culture, and the fact that I'm not talking here about the racism, because that's, everyone knows that, but the fact that I was able to understand how society works in terms of women and how they were supposed to be acting and treated and everything like that. And the fact that I was able to be like, that is impossible, and yet Scarlett does it. It's just so incredible, because the book really, Margaret Mitchell really gets you into that headspace. And honestly, the chapters are really long. I was driving to my cousin, and I was driving like 3.5 hours, and I spent the entire time at the first day of this book, like when they're at the picnic day. Like that was the entire drive. And I loved it. I didn't care, because it was just so in-depth and so engrossing, with talking about how the culture was and how she was expected to behave and how certain people were expected to behave, but also you get inside Scarlett's head and you understand that she's not a good person. So I really did enjoy so many elements of this. I thoroughly loved so many elements of this, but I also thoroughly hated so many elements of this. At about the halfway point, or maybe 5/8 of a point, that's really specific, I know, but at that point I started to really hate a lot of elements. But before that, I really loved the first half. So I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5, I should say, and I'm going to be not writing up, but I still need to make my video discussing all my thoughts on this. It's on my to-do list. I also read Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. I read this children's version. I do own the adult version. It's right here. I've never read this one though, so I would really like to read this one eventually, but I read this one at least, and I was very happy to have finally read this one. It's one of like 6 or 7 of these little kids classics that I have been collecting a little bit, and I was very excited to, you know, just get this one off my shelf as an unread book. Very fun, very cute, and I'm giving it a 4-star for the overall story and the way that this one is done. It has illustrations throughout it, so like that, and it's very much a children's adaptation of it. So very short chapters, and like I think there were only 6 chapters in the whole thing. So it was really good, and I really enjoyed it, so 4 stars. I also read Late Lunch with Llamas. This one is by Mary Pope Osbourne, book 34 in the Magic Treehouse series, and I gave this one a 4-star. I really did enjoy this one as well. This one follows the time of I believe it was the Incas, and they talk about Machu Picchu. I'm sorry, my brain is a little wonky, but it was really interesting, and I liked how it talked about the culture and how it talked about the different elements, religion elements of their culture, and especially how they talked about the different ways that animals were so important to them. So I really liked this installment. It was the 3rd most recent book, so I had 2 left after this, and as of filming, I have read the most 2 recent, and they will be in my May mid-month wrap-up. I also read The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus. This one is in the by Christopher Marlowe, and by this edition. let me say that again. That was by Christopher Marlowe, and in this edition, which I have 3 authors in here. So I have King Lear, which is by Shakespeare, and then I have 4 authors, John Webster and Ben Jonson in here as well. So I read Christopher Marlowe. He was my author jar poll for the month of April, and I gave it 3 stars. It was good, but I think I'm just so used to Shakespeare from this time era, and that's not a bad thing in a way, but this one had a lot more stage direction than I was expecting, so it kind of confused me with that. I did enjoy it, but at the same time, I was kind of like, what's going on? So I had to look up summary and figure out what's happening. It basically follows a man who makes a deal with the devil and has magical abilities. I think that's what it was. I'm still a little confused, but I did enjoy it, and it was a very quick and easy read from Christopher Marlowe. I think I might be wanting to read more from him, but I'm not sure, as I have so many authors to read, and I do have, like I said, 2 more authors in this edition to pick up. So we'll see whenever I get back to him. I also finished my punishment book for the month, which was from TBR Clue, because I did not guess the cards correctly. So I read Henry VIII. This one's called A Brief History of Henry VIII, Reformer and Tyrant by Derek Wilson. This one I found really interesting. This one is mostly about Henry VIII and how his life changed Europe, and changed, I guess not really Europe, but kind of changed England and the UK for forever. It really looks at him and not his wives. They are mentioned, obviously, as that is a big part of why he changed religion and society and the whole political element, because it really did drastically change their entire society and the entire way of them approaching politics and the ways that kings ruled. And I think that's fascinating because King Henry VIII, I think, did not realize what he was doing at the time. But this book is a very short one, considering it's not like super short, but it's about 300 pages, 350 pages of storyline of him. But it does obviously touch on his wives and how they impacted his decisions. However, it is really more about him, which I think is different compared to most non-fictions about Henry VIII, because most of them are based on his wives. So this one was good. It followed him from the time that he was like kind of born to the time of his death. But like I said, it's a brief history, so it's not in depth, but it was very interesting. And I would recommend it if you are interested at all in Henry VIII and how he changed the way religion and the church and the society of the kings and all of those things are intertwined, especially in this era. So I check it out. It does get a 3-star from me, as it was not revolutionary, but I did, like I said, really find it fascinating. A little bit dry at times, but that's okay because I was maybe not in the right headspace for it, but I'm not gonna demerit it, I guess I should say. I read another 3-star book after that, which was The Crushing Depths. This one was my 2020 TBR jar book that I read, so I did complete my TBR, which I'm thankful for. I still will probably read my potential punishment book, but this one I did read, so I don't have to anymore. So this one is by Dani Pettrey. This one is about a group of people who work kind of like NCIS, but with the Coastal Guard, and they are all investigators. Now, this one was interesting because this is book 2 in the series, and I think the series is called Coastal Guardians. It says on the spine, so I'm gonna go with that. Book 3 is coming out this summer, and I already have the ARC, so I do need to read this. And I was like, well, I can pick this up and get on my ARC train. The problem with this one, though, for me, why I only got a 3, was because it felt a little scattered. It was very all over the place with different plots, and it felt like nothing cohesively came together, and the main mystery was just not the main mystery anymore. So I felt like there was just not enough focus in here, but I did enjoy the characters and the development of the world, and I did feel like this was middle book syndrome, setting up for the next book, where the next book I know follows another investigator in here and another person we met in this book. So that's why it felt like this one was setting us up for this next book, the 3rd book. I don't know if that's only it, because there were more characters who might get together, because this is like a romance suspense series, Christian romance suspense series, but yeah, I don't know. It was good though. It has a lot of mysteries. So this one follows specifically, or the main mystery that you're supposed to be following, is where there is this ship that is like a pipeline or an oil pipeline thing, and they have a death on board and they are being investigated just to make sure that nothing is going on. There is a curse about it, and that's kind of where it takes off. But like I said, it's more about the team than about that specific mystery. So I think it's a good series to read, but at the same time, it's not amazing, stellar. I will let you know though when I read the third book as my arc if I think that the third book uplifts this series as a whole. So now we're getting into the books that I did read for the Game of a Bookish Life readathon. So you will have already heard my thoughts, but I guess I didn't really go into too many thoughts in that video. So I did read First and Second Kings and First Chronicles, not Second Chronicles. These ones are the next ones after King David essentially is about to die. First Kings starts when he is very old, but then First Kings I think followed a lot of Solomon. I can't remember now. I'd have to go back. It's been so many books that I've read, but it was really interesting. I really enjoyed learning all the history of all the kings. That's why I can't remember. There's been so many kings in those books. And First Chronicles as well just follows the entirety of King David's reign. That's all the book is. It was really interesting to go back and look at all these kings and how they impacted the nation of Israel, what they did, and how that was interacting with the nations around them. So I am still going to be doing a book, video about this whole thing, but I'm going to do, I think, with the history books when I'm done Second Chronicles, and I think that might be when I should start that, but we will see. I'm going to take a look at how the breakdown is for next month's reading, or this current month's reading, and then I'll let you know. I also read For the Love of Mike by Rhys Bowen. This was my second chance author, so I did technically actually read second chance author this month, so I don't feel super bad about my TBR not being completed, because it was completed. Either way, I finished this one. I give it 4 stars, which I'm really happy I gave second chance author to this one. So For the Love of Mike was about Molly Murphy as she is in New York. This is book 3 in the series. And last time I said I'm giving her one more chance, this series one more chance, and I'm very glad I did. This one definitely got into more of a mystery element, more of a solving problems kind of idea, and I really liked that. It also followed a lot more of Molly as she was trying to, I don't know, discuss things. And I've also kind of embraced the fact that this series is more about social commentary maybe than about the mystery element sometimes, which I'm okay with because they did intertwine a lot. And I was kind of surprised. I was like, this is too easy. I don't think this is the right answer. And I was on the right path a little bit. So I was excited that I was able to not completely guess, but I was able to kind of go right way because I like to guess, but at the same time, I was okay with it not being a guessable book. So I liked it, and I did enjoy a lot of what was going on, and I am giving it a 4-star once I started reading and really getting invested. I couldn't stop, and that's a good sign for me. I probably would have given it a 3, except for the umph it gave me, like the adrenaline it was to pick up another book and to keep reading, so that's why I got a 4. So the last and final book is my only Agatha Christie book that I read this month. I only read one, and I read it on the 30th, which was kind of shocking, but I did finally read one this in April, and that was Partners in Crime. This is the second Tommy and Tuppence book, and it's kind of more like short stories, even though it's called a book. And some of the short stories would be this thing, and then the next one would be, let me try to find an example because I'm not going to just be... Okay, so here it is. So one of them, the third chapter, is called The Affair of the Pink Pearl, and then the fourth one's called The Affair of the Pink Pearl Part, or Continued. So they'd have sometimes 2 chapters about the same short story. I really liked how this built on their relationship. I was laughing out loud at certain things, and I really read the series out of order. I read everything but the first book, and I started with book 5 when I read Tommy and Tuppence. So I'm really out of order with the series, but I really enjoyed seeing all the characters, and this one was really fun to see. Albert, I loved Albert, or was his name Alfred? I think his name is Alfred? I was right, it's Albert. I knew I was right, or somewhat close. So Albert is really hilarious in this one. He's I think 15 in this, and he is definitely wanting to be a butler. I loved the first section where he was talking about taking people's cards and stuff. I was like, oh my word, what a funny guy. But I really love Tommy and Tuppence as a duo, and how they bounce ideas off of each other, and how Tommy is really respectful of Tuppence and really admires her, because I feel like that's something we don't see a lot of in men of literature of this time. So I thought it was really brilliant, and I thoroughly loved this book. I'm giving it 4 stars because it is a short story collection. It's hard for me to give it a 5, but I really enjoyed all of the characters in this and how each story built on each other, and I was very excited. I did notice a lot of these stories relating to future Agatha Christie books, so I am going to talk about that in my review of this one in my next Agatha Christie 3-book review. So you'll have to keep your eyes peeled for that one. But I found some very interesting, and I really liked how you got to learn more about them through all these little cases they did. So those are the books that I read for the second half of April. There are a lot, it feels like, but there were a lot of short ones, a lot of little short stories, a play or two, well, a play, but it was short. So I am happy with all of the Rahagas that I read, especially that I read this one almost completely during that time period, because I flew through it and I really loved the whole idea of reading a big chunky book in like a week. So that was really great. But I thoroughly loved my reading. No, I didn't. That's a lie. I think my average rating was like a 3.7 over the month, which is low for me. I have like a 4 up almost all the time because of just how I pick books up that I want to read and love to read. And a lot of these books over the month for the whole were like 3 stars. So my average rating was low this month, but that's okay. I'm going into May with hopefully some really amazing books, and I'm excited going forward. So please let me know down below if you read any of these ones, if we had any books or thoughts in common about them, or if you liked any books that you had read in the month of April and gave them a nice all-time high. I would love to know down below in the comments. If you have stayed to the end, thank you so much, and please like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new here, and I will chat with you next time. Bye for now.